is funk. Thoughts deep, boys steeped in the depths that he sunk. Big stress, depressed in the middle of fall. Sky gray, I lay in the thick of it all. I wonder, how long can a human survive just staying alive or carrying the rest of the tribe? Waiting for the day to arrive or struggling dies, and I be doing way, way more than getting by. So why? Cop myself a cup of coffee, sip of water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, cop myself a cup of coffee, sip of water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Life is so much more than just living a day. Every day I can sit and reflect and reconnect to myself and know that I've been given. See, giving up is not an option. So when I'm looking at gray skies, I'll be adopting a new way to deal with a test. Lord, relieve me of stress and bring me looking like we're blessings dropping. And so I cop myself a cup of coffee, sip of water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Coffee, sip of water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, here we go. Yeah, let's do this. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. In times of test, let no harm beset me, oh my Lord, oh my Lord.
Good evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand. A little bit late today. We had a little bit of an issue. I should say I had a little bit of an issue. As you know, or maybe you don't know, in Russia now, they're just blocking every type of communication with the West. So whether it's WhatsApp or Viber or Google Meet, it's just impossible. So the people with whom I speak, I had to figure out a way to get around it. And you know what the only way was, ladies and gentlemen? And I don't like giving a shout out to Ecamm because, look, I pay them for this, so it's a fair transaction. I don't have to advertise for them. But using their link is a way to get around it because the Russians don't know anything about Ecamm. As far as I know, Ecamm's not that big where people would know about it. So it got me through, and the people were amazed with the clarity. It wasn't streamed. As you know, I don't do that kind of thing with the Russians, but it worked, and that's nice. However, when I came back to use it later tonight, well, I couldn't figure out what was going wrong, and I realized I had taken stream off. So Sorry about that. And plus, I was being nudged by a certain individual who had a birthday last week. Joey Fulcher kept bothering me, kept asking me when we're going on. And that was taking some time to get through to read all the quotes and all that kind of stuff. So, Joey, you're guilty, okay? You're guilty. All right. Without any further ado, here's a guy who's kind of guilty too, but we'll give him
Guilt
right.
by association, maybe. All right, let me just get this out really quickly. Do you think it would make a difference if you actually talk to real Russians instead of Russian prostitutes who want to come to America and you're trying to entice them?
No,
Do you think that
I
makes a
don't think
difference?
no, these are
Yes, you do.
all
Tell me
top-notch
you've never
people.
tell me right now with a straight face that you never slept with a Russian prostitute.
I never slept with a Russian prostitute. Never.
Now, do you consider males prostitutes? Did you do that?
Okay.
All right, Brian.
I don't dig
we're
that.
here.
Just don't dig males.
Well,
Especially you.
normally,
Neither do
we don't
you, okay? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay.
well, my thing is, let's see. Normally, we start the show, and we do this, we do that, we kind of have a routine. But tonight, we're going to deviate a little bit because this has been the week that was in Washington D.C. As I've mentioned 1,000 times, but it can always good for 1,001. Where I live is the perfect place to be situated right now, 4.6 miles from Donald Trump's White House. And as you can imagine, or as you know if you read the news, DC is occupied. Trump can call it anything he wants, but it is an occupation. And a number of things happened this week. So starting with Monday. On Monday, there were two press conferences outside the Capitol building featuring those victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ms. Maxwell and Donald Trump. They were somewhat cautious in what they were saying, and there's a reason for that. We know that Mr. Trump will sue at the drop of a hat. So, you don't want to really get involved with that. But basically, the big news from that, which I hope will actually transpire, is that at both press conferences, the women indicated that if the transcripts are not released, they will put their own list together and have it released.
Good.
Now, that's really good. But then the first of two of the most bizarre things in politics for me happened is it was two congressmen who had sponsored it, but a third congresswoman joined them. And that congresswoman was none other than Marjorie Taylor Greene. And MTG, as she likes to be called, to go with AOC,
Horse legs?
has been called that. She actually took a stand and said, this is horrendous, and these women must be listened to. She said that she was only at one of the press conferences, and she said that in the event that they do put that list together, she will read it live from the Capitol.
Yeah, the last time she reads anything, if she does it with them.
Well, yes and no.
You wouldn't put it
First,
past them, would you?
well, it all depends.
It doesn't
okay?
seem logical, but
No. Well, here's the thing. As I've said before 1,000 times, and we'll continue to say it, we can know what a person does, but we don't know why or how. Sometimes we don't know how. Sometimes we don't know why they're doing it. My best guess is she hasn't what my dad used to call, or Southerners call, a come to Jesus moment. She's involved in a fight internally with MAGA of who is the queen bee. Is it Marjorie Taylor Greene, who she feels has been in the forefront, and she has been, of the MAGA fight, and her bitter enemy, Laura Loomer, who is not elected, but apparently has Trump's ear right now. Then you've got the newcomers, and it's kind of a cat fight, but it doesn't matter. Your wife, who's usually pretty much on the money, indicated in a comment that she wouldn't believe Marjorie Taylor Greene no matter what, and that I respectfully disagree with Ronnie in this sense. Whatever Marjorie Taylor Greene does against Donald Trump, I am for. I'm not going to say she's a friend, but we can at least call her a frenemy. So that was Monday. Of course, then the ramifications came, and my favorite occurred Thursday when little Mikey Johnson, who's the head of the House, where this came from, I don't know. How he could do it with a straight face, I don't understand. But he actually said, and I quote, yes, Donald Trump was involved with Epstein, but he was involved as an informant for the FBI.
Right.
Now, if anyone believes that, I pity you. I don't even know. There's not even anywhere you could grab where that would come from. Why did he say it? I mean, it's pretty. That's an easy one to prove or disprove. Now, one of the proofs we're seeing, and I tend to agree with this, is if Donald Trump were innocent, the list would be made public. Correct?
Right.
Why wouldn't it be? If Donald Trump was a FBI informant, we'd have known that during the investigation. What we do know is Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were best buds. Now, what that means in Trump's world, I don't know. Up until they had a falling out, and if you look at the time frame of that falling out, it occurred when Epstein stole one of the young girls that was working at Mar-a-Lago. Okay. The women who testified on Monday indicated that Trump was aware, although none of them mentioned having a relationship with him or even, but they knew that he was there. And one of the things they kept harping on was how Epstein talked about all these powerful people he knew. And on his desk were not one, but two pictures of Donald Trump. So there's no question. I mean, we've got pictures, we've got everything we've done. Now, Brian, I want to ask you a question here before we move on.
Sure.
Do you think we'll ever, from the government, get the list?
The actual list.
If there is an actual list, do you think we will ever see it being delivered by any branch or any form of government?
That's a great question. I have to think in terms of what Donald Trump would think. Okay, now let's make the assumption that Donald Trump is on that list. We know that he's a liar. We know that in the past he's manipulated the truth. If I were Donald Trump, I would be flushing those things down the toilet. I'd be pressuring people to redact them. So my assumption is that he got rid of them. The only way they wouldn't is if he's worried that somebody in the DOJ or in the FBI was able to make copies of them. Now, that's the thing that he would have to really worry about. They'd have to kind of trace back and see, did anybody make copies of this thing? Because then he could look like a fool. Because somebody could be sitting on them and say, okay, now we're going to just pop them out of here. So I think that's his big worry. But otherwise, my answer would certainly be yes. No, you're never going to see them again.
Yes, I would tend to. I mean, I think they've been redacted. I think they've been changed. I think they've been altered. I think the pages have been lost. So the only hope is the one that you brought up, that someone had the presence of mind to copy them,
right,
and withhold them. Now, MAGA, Trumpian MAGA, is also trying to portray that it's not Trump that he's protecting, it's other people. Well, I'm sorry. If you hung out with Jeffrey Epstein, you were a creep. End of story. End of tale. That's you, Bill Clinton. That's you, Bill Gates. That's anybody who did that. I don't care who it was. I don't care who it was. You're guilty by association.
Right.
But if we don't have a list, we don't know who's guilty by association. Now, we do know that Representative Rokanen and Marjorie Taylor Greene have indicated that there is a constitutional protection to congressmen by where you can kind of risk libel and slander in the House if indeed you're trying to present something
Right.
to the public. So I think the best we can hope for is that the young women, who by the way were extremely believable, extremely believable.
All right. Well, besides, would you believe anybody in the Republican Party? Would you believe them?
No, so you've got
Right.
a whole party of liars versus women that really don't have a lot to gain other than the satisfaction of speaking out. A lot of them described what is the profile of being sexually abused for years.
Right.
A number of them have said, I thought I was the only one. Now, another thing I don't know if you saw was, well, if they were 16, the law doesn't say a 16-year-old can do what, can do that.
Right.
And you're talking about someone who had incredible power and incredible connections. So that's been playing out and will continue to play out. Then you've got this Mike Johnson thing, as I say,
Oh,
coming out of
can you
nowhere.
explain that to the audience there, please?
Yeah, well, just what he said was basically, as you know, I indicated, that Trump was working as an FBI informant. No, little Mikey, no.
No, it's just vile what he was saying there.
Now, we can't stop there. We decide.
And by the way, can I ask you about that? Do you think that
Yeah.
Trump told him to do that? I mean, he doesn't just say something.
Well, you know what? That's where I get confused, Brian. There's two things going on, and we'll talk about them both over the show, but there are MAGA people who are following Trump's directions, okay? But then there are MAGA people who are trying to please Trump by going ahead of something he might say. So I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if Trump got a message to Michael. And what we don't know, too, we know now finally that Stephen Miller, who, is as vile as Trump, maybe more vile because he's not as crazy as Trump. We do know that now he is fully directing the occupation of Washington, D.C. That came across. Everybody, that is all going through him. Trump gave the order, but now Miller's running the show. Is there somebody in the White House who's running the Epstein show, or is it Donald Trump? Now, of course, we got to get our buddy from the Pentagon involved. And so we decide, America, that 11 Venezuelans on a small sailing boat are coming to attack America. And so we drop bombs on them, which meant 11 Venezuelans were murdered. Now, can you see any justification for that, no matter what they were doing? Brian?
Well, in the past, they've been shooting warning shots. You could shoot rubber bullets. I mean, they get the message quickly. They can't defeat a warship, a frigate, or whatever you're using.
Yeah, no, right.
I mean, it doesn't have to be an aircraft.
It just has to be more gunned than they were.
Right. I mean, look, if Mike Tyson comes at Dave Price, Dave's gonna move out of the way if he has to fight him. There's a 1 in 3 billion chance that Dave could beat, Mike Tyson.
I think the odds are too high.
There is a chance if he slipped and you happen to have your fist out and he just fell in the right way and slipped and hit his, in his temple and you knocked him out, that would be the one chance out of a billion. But other than that, you move out of the way.
And I think what people don't understand, well, MAGA, I shouldn't say people don't understand, is what the United States did, even if it was the right move, is something that starts wars. Now, people can say, well, we'll kick Venezuela's ass. May well be. But you know who's going to come to Venezuela's aid?
Somebody. Maybe China.
Russia and China will come immediately. Why? Because Venezuela is an oil-producing country, which right now, every country needs.
And it also could be a base for the Russian Army, Air Force.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So. And if I were the president of Venezuela, which of course I'm not, and that happened to a ship of mine, I would certainly be trying to recruit the Russians or the Chinese or the North Koreans, whoever, or the now we've got India moving in.
Now, are
To
we
that.
sure that that was an actual video of an actual ship being taken out? I mean,
Well, you never know with them. You never know with them. Well, let's look at that. An actual video. Remember 2 weeks ago when Trump was dead? It wasn't, unfortunately.
Right.
And the White House, not some support group, the White House released video footage that showed Trump playing with a football coach playing golf. That video was shot in April, and it showed a video of Trump teeing off. And the last I knew, it was a golf course here in Virginia. No golf course in Virginia has palm trees, and yet palm trees were in that video. So what more proof do we need that they don't even care? They'll send anything out. So I wouldn't believe anything that came there. What I do believe is three things. I do believe that could be cause for an act of war. It certainly should be prosecuted in a world court. And thirdly, it's not just, hey, we kicked Venezuela's ass, because there will be, or definitely could be, foreign interference who would love to come in, as you pointed out,
Right.
have a base there. Cuba all over again, just a
Right.
little further away. Well, let's see. So, that's not enough. So, as I said on this show all along, one of my favorite places to go, because it's the most American thing that I've seen, maybe in my lifetime, is in Lafayette Park, which is located directly across from the White House. For 44 years, which is kind of a long time, there has been an ongoing protest. It makes it the longest protest in United States history. It started as an anti-nuclear protest, morphed into problems of the war, and now has added Trump as a universal worldwide problem. I was surprised that Donald Trump had not made a move on that in his first term, but he was there. He was there for 4 years. It was there for 4 years. Of course, when Biden, that was there. Trump comes in, and about 3 weeks ago, Brian, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, the Washington Post ran a big story about it's called the Peace Vigil, 24/7 Peace Vigil, how long it had been there, who was there. And their current director is a gentleman by the name of Filipos. And it kind of featured Filipos talking about the history. And then it got to one of your favorite people, your congressman, Jeff Van Drew, who would have been my congressman if I still lived in that district. Little history on Van Drew. He was a Democrat who, after he got a big Democratic contribution, switched parties and went to the White House and said to Donald Trump, "I am yours, how can I serve you?" And that's basically the exact wording that he said. So he comes out with this idea that it's an eyesore and should be taken down. Okay. So we've got that circulating. And then on, what's today? Sunday? On Friday, I guess, right? Friday? Maybe at that soiree where they had the first pedophile patio party in what used to be the Rose Garden, a right-wing reporter said to Trump, and this is what's being said, I don't know how verbatim we are, but basically said, "Are you aware of this thing across the street?" And Trump said, "No, what are you talking about?" Now, Trump has lived in the White House for what? 4 years and 9 months, something like that.
Right. Fair enough.
It's been there every minute of every day, and he doesn't know that it's out there. Right, okay. So this reporter goes on to say, well, it's a threat. They're anti-American. They're this, they're that, and they have weapons. None of which is true. So the Secret Service, 6:45 a.m., came in and dismantled the tent. And they timed it well. There were two big dogs there, and they left to secure their cars. So it was like a younger guy there, and they came in and took it down. So of course today I wanted to go out there and see, what was going on. So I spent a lot of my time today in Lafayette Park. And what it is, they put it back up, but they can't put the tent structure up. And it's going to be interesting how this plays out. Now, if that were all, but it was fascinating while we're out there. And my wife went with me, and so we're sitting there, and then she nudges me, says, "Look over there. It looks like there's a confrontation going on." And it had been a gentleman I was talking to earlier who was a veteran, 15-year veteran of the military, whose wife has been deported. She was Filipino. He said they spent 3 years trying to get her made regular, spent almost $3,000, kept getting the government runaround. So currently she is deported to the Philippines. At least she got deported to her homeland, right? Which I guess, And so he was staging a one-person protest out there that included a big sign and 2 upside-down American flags tied to the first barricade. Now, again, if anyone isn't familiar with the White House, basically you've got the White House grounds and then a high metal fence. Then you've got a sidewalk. Then you've got a road that would really be almost like 3 lanes if you had lanes, right? I mean, it's bigger than 2 lanes. And then Lafayette Park. Well, they have put the permanent boundary at Lafayette Park. You can get no closer than that. So he had them on that. And I went over because, I said, I'm going to check out this thing. And I do have to be in fairness. The Secret Service, there were 2. One was a female, one was a male. They were really very patient with this guy. Now, this guy was upset. He was irate. He's gotten the runaround. He can't see his wife. And he said, I came up from North Carolina. I just had to be here. I was coming, I'm here today, and I had to do this. And his language was such that, certainly it was not church-type language. So that kind of leveled off for a minute. And I listened to the Secret Service say, just cool off, sir, and let us know when you want to know what you want to do. He said, you just can't tie these flags to the fence. You can put them anywhere else. We don't care, but that's the rule that you're violating.
Right.
Well, he came up and started again, and it got off to even a worse foot. And but at that point, I had to leave and go to Busboys and Poets. That's another thing that I went to today. Anyway, when I came back, he had been arrested, but that's not surprising. And I think one of the hard things is going to be, we're not there all the time to see this stuff. And I would have to say that what I witnessed of the Secret Service was very professional. Okay? I'm not taking sides. I'm just saying. And it's a rule that you can't put it up there. Now, you can attack the rule, right? That's a stupid rule. You could attack that Trump is making it impossible to get to the White House. All those things are true, but at this point. But then back to the 24/7. So tonight, it was really interesting. I got in about 10 minutes before we were supposed to start the show. And it's a very interesting thing. People are coming from all over. How you doing, Filippo? I mean, he's a known commodity in this area. So attorneys were coming by, ACLU. So that's something we can focus on and look at. My argument is this point. This is why Trump is beyond any hope. He could play that to his advantage. Think about how this would be. It's been there forever. He didn't put it up. So he just goes on and says, listen, you say I'm a dictator.
Right.
Well, I'm going to show you. There's this group out there protesting me every day, and I just let it go. But of course, he can't do that. And the timing was such. You're taking that down, which is a violation of First Amendment rights, all other types of things. You're violating a legal order, so that'll be interesting. That had been signed before. But what happened? It's the government's estate. I actually talked to the Secret Service today. I said, well, how did this happen? And they said, well, when the document first went up, they never had an ending date on it. And the government signed it with no ending date, which means it can go forever. So legally, there's no expiration date. So whatever the date was, it could go up. Yes, it can stand from January 3rd, 1981 or whatever it was. And legally, it'll be interesting to see. So we've got all that going on in Washington, D.C., on top of everything else. And what is everything else? The world is burning around us. So, Brian, of all the things that happened this week, I mean, for me, it was very personal here. I maybe I overstepped my bounds. I'll read it. But I was really irate with Van Drew, whom I don't like anyway, personally, professionally, or any other type of way. And so I wrote him a thing, something like, it was like this: Dear Congressman Van Drew, you are not my congressman now, but for 59 and a half years, I lived in the district that you now represent, and certainly am still concerned about that district. I was upset when you decided to become a traitor to your party and go with the Republicans and Trump. So I do have a question for you, Congressman Van Drew. When you go to the White House and fall on your knees, do you suck President Trump off or do you blow him? And that, of course, Congressman Van Drew, brings up another question. Do you spit or do you swallow, assuming you bring President Trump to climax? And then I said, of course, I could be wrong, right? I said, maybe you do not blow President Trump or suck President Trump off. Maybe you just kiss his ass. And if you do you use your tongue to probe deeply into his anal cavity? And if so, is your tongue clean when it comes out of his anal cavity? Now, I don't know if I'll get a response. What do you think, Brian? You think I'll get a response from the Van Drew
You might
office?
get a knock at the door.
Well, it's something that, I mean, let me ask you, I don't know. The man.
Well, I know I have another friend. It's a mutual friend we have, and I know he sent him not quite as descriptive as and sorted as yours, but it was very, very intense, and he was very pissed. And I can understand why you did it. I mean, at some point, that's all you have left. It's probably more effective than just saying I'm against what you're doing, blah blah blah. No, you have to show your anger and your passion. Now, everybody's got to do it in their own way.
Correct.
You did it your way. And if this had been a normal administration, you never would have written something like that. I mean,
that is absolutely
you're
correct.
A journalist. You were a journalist, and you know what it means to write to an audience. I mean, your audience is really, really important. In fact, if I can just bring this up, it's years and years and years ago at Cherry West, I knew a student, and Joey probably doesn't know him, but he was a guitar student of mine, and he was a brilliant kid. And he wrote this wonderful piece, but he eventually got expelled for what he wrote, and it had some jargon that was, off the hook. And I read it, and I said, his name was Brandon, and I said, Brandon, that's fantastic, but I said, you made the one major mistake, is you don't know who your audience is. But
Correct.
I think in your case,
I knew
you knew exactly who your audience was.
It's an audience
and you don't care about whether they like it or not. And in a certain sense, you don't mind if they say F you or whatever, because
I don't
it just doesn't matter.
No, and I think that's a sense of frustration. Now, one of the things I did was reinforced in my mind today was, and this is very hard to do, so I'm saying something almost impossible, but you should not resist emotionally, because emotion gets in the way. I'm talking about that former veteran who crossed lines, understandably so, all right, because he was irate and angry. And
unless you know you can win in the situation, you do not use emotion.
Because what we talked about, the group that was out there later, was, because one thing about the Peace Vigil, and also I found with the Flare group, which is also a 24/7 group at Union Station, is they are being very deliberate about what they do, and they're just as deliberate about what they don't do. And so this one gentleman, imagine, I mean, your wife is, you've been married for 15 years? And the interesting thing is she has a military ID as his wife. She could fly from a military base in the Philippines, right, to any military base in the United States, and they couldn't do anything with her until she sets foot off the base. So, I mean, it's, again, but we have to be careful, those of us who are resisting, to make sure who the bad guys are. And right now in Washington, D.C., I will tell you, some people will disagree with me, but that's fine. I will tell you the enemy right now is not the National Guard. It's not the Secret Service. It is ICE, no question about that.
Right. And you've seen those advertisements on on many
Right.
networks. It's obnoxious. And then on the bottom left-hand corner of these advertisements, they make these outlandish statements, and they can't just, because of libel or whatever, so they put it, Fox said it. So in other words, you have to attack Fox, as reported by the
Well,
news organization Fox.
well, what happens now? I'll give it a little bit more of the flavor. First of all, I'm going to give you an announcement, though. Divided We Stand, your organization, Brian, because I distance myself because of your incompetence from time to time. No, they agreed tonight, as we sat there. They're joining us, and we're joining them. Okay, beginning tomorrow, we're going to put together a blog dealing with that. We're putting together a Facebook and Blue Sky, which we have freedom to use, and they will use. So one of the things we can provide now is the actual story of what's happening with Eyes on the White House, with a legally entitled group and their First Amendment rights, and we'll see what happens. So that's kind of cool for us, and it's kind of cool for the city. But as I walk tonight, and again, just give you some things that you can't capture. Walking down 17th Street, which is, of course, one block over, there was one person on the street besides Judy and I this afternoon. Walking down Black Lives Matter, what was Black Lives Matter Plaza, again, one person. Coming home, nobody in D.C. So when Trump says such things as D.C. is back, there is no crime, well, it's hard to have crime if you don't have anybody out in the streets.
Right.
So, and again, it's purpose. I like, some of that I keep on my page well, let me do it this way. I've always been fascinated by primates and their behavior, trying to figure out, human or not.
Right.
But I love that. And I love MAGA people for that same reason on my page. They entertain me. They're monkeys. They're not human. They're something else. But they're, oh, yeah, that's great. Complain about a city where the crime rate's down. Again, as I point out to them all the time, it's not just what you do, it's why you do it and how you do it. And Trump fails on both how he does things and why he does things. And he also many times fails on what he does. Now, we're going to see something that came up earlier, I think, but we're going to see something now. Now, Chicago is a whole different story. We'll see what happens there.
Right. I mean, that's more intense.
We know that Pritzker is ready. You saw the tremendous numbers yesterday in the two major protests, one in D.C., one in Chicago. Chicago is ready for this. Chicagoans don't want it, and they have a governor behind it. Now, Muriel Bowser, who is the mayor of D.C., is in a difficult position, but I feel she is way too appeasing of Trump. Way too appeasing. But again, it's easy for me to say. Trump controls every cent that comes into D.C., where Trump doesn't control every cent that comes in to Chicago or the state of Illinois. Right. We're beginning to see what may well be the first signs of some type of secession, whether it'll be civil war or not. You noticed last week that
in a certain
California,
sense, it is secession, and not literally secession, but
right.
The fact that he's going to defy the federal government, it's a message that it's basically we are not part of you.
Well, you were saying that now. California, Oregon, and Washington announced that they were going to form a separate kind of health thing, right? To track. I agree. And then Hawaii joined, and now your state, Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, maybe a number of those are saying the same thing.
Right.
And of course, we know
Republicans. Well, you wait and see. They'll start moving to these states. Where you think they're moving out, they're going to be moving in.
I know. I mean, what's the famous example is what, depending on the format you use, California either has the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world, right. Not in the United States, in the world. So they can certainly do things. You've got Gavin Newsom, who's fighting back.
And it's thankful that we can see. I mean, I know you're not particularly fond of Gavin Newsom, but the fact that he's fighting back must give you some.
Oh,
hope
absolutely.
That,
absolutely.
There is someone who's fighting back.
Again, I'm not an expert on very much, but I did have some experience in the 60s being out on the street and being a protester. And then I covered a lot of protests as a reporter. and now back out protesting. And I think one of the things that we all have to remember is there's only two sides in this. Well, there's really three, but we'll talk about two. There's us and them. And anybody who is against Donald Trump is an us. And we might not agree with everything they do.
Right. And we can't. This is the whole point of the Democratic
the fact
Party.
is, if it's attacking Trump, it's good. Now, interesting article I read today. You and I've had these conversations ever since we've known one another. Another one's going around. Would you kill Donald Trump if you had a chance when he was a day old or 2 days old? And then ask the same question, would you kill him now? Would your answer be the same for both?
No.
What would it? When he was a child, would you have killed him?
Yes.
Yes.
Look, I don't. First of all, I would probably say no and no. Probably no and no. I don't know. It'd be no and no, but definitely a definite no as the child. I could never do that.
No,
now,
I think
I don't even know if that's the right way to go about it.
Well,
unless he's just firing something right at you.
Well, we can hope that he's not doing his health, any benefits. Maybe one extra cheeseburger tonight, Donald.
Keep eating. And
we know, you can see visibly that there is something wrong with him. What it is, I do not know. I'm not a medical person. Of course, the joke going around is that we have to hope that Bobby Kennedy, is advising him for health. And of course, that brings me to the last point I want to kind of address tonight is whether you believe it or not, and this is not directed to our people, it's directed to anyone who is not our people. Whether you believe it or not, RFK is trying to kill you.
Yes, but in the sense that I don't think he purposely wants to kill people. I think he's nuts.
Doesn't matter. If you follow,
it's the catch-22 phrase. Whatever is going to kill you is that's the thing you have to watch out.
And that's where it is. Now, is it him solely? No. Certainly. It'll be interesting to see with Florida. Now, I've already had people who have told me, not a lot, but a few, I'm not going to Florida. It's a death trap waiting to happen. Now, again, everything gets kind of amplified and misidentified in this bogus news world. So to make it clear, what Florida is doing, it is not banning vaccines. It is not requiring children to have vaccines to go to school. So what you will have is you can still get vaccines, but you'll be in with unvaccinated people. And they're in a race right now between Florida and DC to see who can drive down tourism the most. Right now, DC is ahead. Canadian tourism to Washington, D.C. is non-existent. I talked to a tour guide today. She's one of the premier ones here. She has all the tours. She said business is down 50%. Restaurants, workers.
And in an odd way, maybe pollution will go down because.
Well, actually, it will. Actually, no. Well, you remember they said
the cars and the transit,
they said during COVID was the lowest recorded pollution, since they've been taking records. Of course, the problem is that now it's an economic base. Also, we can't forget coming up by the end of the month, if certain agreements can't be made, we'll have a government shutdown.
And I'm for it.
I'm just for it playing out however it plays out.
But I can't trust the Democratic Party in that. I think they don't have the balls to do it. This is where I have a problem with it.
I think it's interesting. Okay. It's kind of, I guess maybe bogus, somebody might say, for me to say this when I'm 73 years old. But it's time for the old farts to get out of the way. It really is. That's not old farts, but if you can't deal in the modern
Schumer's got to go. He's just
that whole. Now today, Eleanor Norton Holmes, who was 88, she's the representative from Washington D.C., a non-voting, but she's there. Now she's out fighting for the return of the peace vigil. So just because of age, it's not necessarily that. But I think we need to begin to look, just like we have age limits at the early stages. I think we need to look for an age limit at the end.
And just plain energy. I mean, older people. I mean, I give Bernie some
I
credit.
know.
He has energy, but you need to have that energy, and you
Well,
have to have the physical presence to be able
I agree.
to change things. We
And
need
I
to
would
talk
say
about
that,
pop culture. We know
so
about it.
so the question becomes, do you want to protect Bernie, who deserves protecting for what he's done, and have 92 other people who shouldn't be there? Or do
Right.
you take a
I get you.
Bernie
Right.
down? And I think at this point, I'm going to go with, I think there's
We
another
can
way to
make.
do it.
Look, why can't we make an exception, Dave? I mean, I think I would.
Well,
give it
that the problem. I'll tell you what. Unfortunately, in government, once you make that exception, it comes down. There's another way to do it, though, Brian. You don't have to have anything to do with age. Do it with term limits. You can only serve.
Everybody keeps talking about it, but except for the
You
presidency,
won't. Well, Brian,
it doesn't
it's
happen.
not. But there's two reasons why it won't happen. Number one, those senators there now and congressmen don't want term limits. They don't. And the second thing is, if it's in the Constitution, it's not easy to change. I mean, it's what the founding fathers did is they made it extremely difficult to change the Constitution of the United States. Do you realize we're the only industrialized nation that hasn't changed their Constitution in the past 100 years?
Really.
Now, people will argue and say, well, you have the 27 amendments. Well, there's still people thinking, well, they're not there. Which brings me to my final point of weirdness. My first point of weirdness was that I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I never thought that would happen. But you know who I agree with this week, Brian?
I know you don't agree with Mike Johnson, that's for sure.
No politicians. I agreed with the NRA.
Oh,
Now,
they said
Now.
transvestites can.
so Trump's regime has posted that they're considering making it illegal for trans people to have a gun. What happened, kids? To the Second Amendment right of everybody.
Right, and then eventually it'll turn into Democrats can't get guns.
We know that, and that's my point, kind of with Bernie, with the exception, kind of thing.
Because they remember, we've talked about Eric Fromm and the idea of what is freedom to one person is not freedom
Right.
to the next. This is the fact that they are afraid of losing whatever they think they're losing.
Right. And what is interesting is, and I did not know that, I have a friend, one of my best friends here, who is blind, and this actually shocked me. Do you know that he can get and buy a gun?
Yeah, I mean it's absurd.
So so we're going to take so until, and how we do it. If anybody out there is listening, or listens later, they're here live or they're listening, please put these ideas out. We have to save America, and it has to be in this order. We have to get rid of Donald Trump. If we get rid of Donald Trump, we have to get rid of his cabinet, which would by default go.
Right.
We can't let J.D. Vance become president. If Trump were to die tomorrow, we got to come after Vance with everything we have until he proves that he's a viable human being, and he's not.
He's not. And just
Some other
the
things-
fact that he became senator in Ohio is bad enough, let alone vice president.
His whole career. I mean, his book.
How does the guy walk into that, Dave?
What?
How does the guy walk into that kind of shit, Dave? I just can't believe it.
Well, J.D. Vance is the ultimate climber. Look, how many people, honestly, if you heard Bill Bobadock fuck the couch, you just say no. But people pause for a moment because it sounded like something a character like J.D. Vance would do.
I agree with Bill,
Now
by the way. Just
Oh yeah, and that's what's happening, and that's just it.
they all deserve to be thrown.
We
into the
have to do everything we can to make sure that not one Republican gets elected, and of course but we have to do that smart. We don't have to make sure that everyone does it. We have to make sure that every winnable race goes to the Democrats. You're not going to get, in the deep Alabama, it ain't going to happen. In deep Georgia, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Now, and facts aren't going to sway it. It's all about, pop culture. And I'm just very grateful that Donald Trump, as a main event at the White House for our 250th birthday, is going to have a UFC fight. Now, that's a smart move on his part. That's his base, man. He's playing to his
That
base.
is his base.
Today, he did not play to his base. He went to the U.S. Open. And there were orders that it was not, if he was booed, it was not to be, projected that way. It's just, and tonight, like I said earlier, I went to this thing at Busboys and Poets. It was Andy Shalal, who's the owner. We won't go into that. But his new book came out. And I mean, it was packed. There was probably, a place that holds 120, there were probably 200 people in there. And they were the movers and shakers of the extreme left in Washington, D.C. And one of our points of conversations, we're talking, waiting for Andy to come on, was the fact that none of us could believe that this is happening in the United States. I'm still stunned. Not this quickly. Maybe not even at all. I think naively.
Well, it's like a political blitzkrieg, basically.
But I just
in World War II, they couldn't understand how it happened so quickly. Well, this is what's happening.
And the parallels are there. And Andy's cautioned that, he says, I know he comes from Iraq. Says, I know what fascism is, and we're going there. And I wonder, not to mess with Andy, but just say, no, we're not going there. We are there. Now, it's a question of, are we, Hitlerian yet? No. Are we 1984? No. But the signs are all there. I don't see anybody right now stopping it, unless, as I say, we have to take down Donald Trump. Any ideas?
I think our best bet now is his health, and I think that what Newsom's doing is fine. I think because he's a man-child, that he will react in a way that it'll be stressful and detrimental to himself, just by doing these South Park things. It's like, look, it's like schoolyard bullshit when you're in elementary school. You just talk shit, but. And that these is exactly, people, it's probably all you can do right now.
Well, think about it. Now, I'm not talking about, today, I wasn't part of this, but Russell Vaughn, who's the head of Heritage and the Project 2025, he's the architect. He lives in Virginia, and a group got together and chalked all the sidewalks in his neighborhood with derogatory remarks. And he came out and walked his dog. And they stayed and watched, and he saw them. Childish? Maybe. But just keep that pressure on.
Got to.
Keep the pressure on.
Because that's how they, by the way, if those of you out there who don't think that's the way to go, first of all, number one, do you have any better ideas? But number two, this is how they became very, very successful getting their
yes. And the other thing is, you have to give the devil his due, it was the old cliche, but okay, what they did very effectively is they started at the bottom and worked their way up. Democrats have stayed for a while on the national front with the president's race, and that's important and all that. But they started with zoning boards and school boards and are still doing it. And from zoning boards and planning boards and school boards comes city commissions and city councils. From city councils become county freeholders. From county freeholders become state legislators and governors. From state legislators and governors become senators and House members. And from senators and House members become the president. And that's how they were able to put this together. Now, having said that, was there election tampering? Keep your eye on New York, upper New York State. How that case goes will tell us a lot. Will we have elections in 2026? At the rate we're going now, I'm not optimistic.
As long as the polls show Trump or any of the other purple states going Democrat or Trump losing, yes. I should say, no, we won't have any elections. We won't have any fair elections.
And that's another question, too. You can have elections, but,
right.
If
what does it
matter?
Fair,
what does it matter?
They have
elections. They have elections in Russia, right? And Putin gets 96.4% of the vote. But now, having said all that, and tonight's show, we still have to fight It doesn't matter.
Right. I mean, think of it, Dave. If you are in a fight and you're going to lose, what do? You take out a tooth or something you know is going to cost them. That you do whatever you have to do, even when you lose.
Yeah. And I think, and and I can understand, initially, I could understand, I just want to sit this one out. This is not my fight, whatever. What is? It's everyone's fight. It is a fight, not to sound overly dramatic. It is a fight for this time, not what America you want. Will there be an America recognizable? And that's where we are.
Yeah.
Will there be?
Right now, it's not even recognizable.
Right.
If you had taken yourself, somebody from 30 years ago, let's just say 30 years ago, and you bring them in today, you'd say, "Oh my God, what the hell happened?"
No. Well, there are these signs. One that I like this week. I've seen variations before. It's nothing new, but it's just this woman was protesting in a Wonder Woman costume, and she just said, but her sign said, "My grandfather fought against fascists. It's the least I can do to continue the battle." I thought that's
what? It is a metaphor for what we must do. Is we have to put the cape on. I mean,
right?
You can't wait for, some cosmic interference. It's not going to happen. You are going to have to next man up. They say it in football. You have to do it.
And that's another thing too. We'll leave with my favorite football team, of course, the Eagles.
Hey.
But we've become interesting there. I've never ever seen the start of a game like the start of the Dallas thing.
That was
within a matter of seconds, you lose a player for the year. That can happen. And here's the other thing. They always say the second guy gets caught. Well, we see the film. Zach Prescott. No, he spit first, but he didn't spit on him. He spit, and it's just like, wow. I'm thinking now the NFL is going to ban trash talk. That's one of the things they're working on. You saw there were 3 penalties that game for trash talking or trashing over. Well, it's kind of late now. I mean, we're a country.
You're right, or you've already started the season.
We are a country of trash talkers, and right now, MAGA talks a lot better trash than we do. So we have to get ready to talk it back if that's what we have to do to win.
Right, 100%. All right, Dave. I guess that's the show tonight.
I guess that is the show tonight.
So we'll
thank
be back
again
next week.
Go ahead.
We'll be back next week.
Now
please share.
It'll be interesting. You might have to do the show yourself. I will be in Alaska. However, I do have access to the internet.
We'll make the attempt. We'll make the attempt.
Yeah. So, and if not, ladies and gentlemen, remember, a show without me is still a show.
Okay.
And Brian will do something.
Who knows?
Brian does.
Okay.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe you can actually get a guest. We never get.
Maybe we haven't had a guest for a while. We got to get Sandy on.
Yeah, you know what? Why don't you talk to her this week? And
I'll
even if I'm there,
see if we get Sandy.
That she would be a good guest. For anybody who doesn't know, Sandy is one of the really good people involved in the environmental fight.
She's usually on with all the environmental stuff, but she does have,
she's
views, so it's good to have her.
Well, but you said it before, Brian. Everything right now hinges for us as Americans on politics. There's no environmental improvement with MAGA there. There's no national parks being saved.
There is no possibility of improvement with a third party because they are not going to win. So
well, that's absolutely true. And again, just in case anybody listening tonight is involved in Democratic parties, please, for the love of God, do not select Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, or Stephen A. Smith and Stephen A. Smith. He's a con too. I don't think he's really serious, but yeah, he would take it. But we need. If Trump has taught us anything,
they have egos too. Those guys.
Well,
most politicians do, but yeah.
I mean, look, you've heard it. I've heard it. We're living in a little bit. Politics. You should run it like a business. No, you shouldn't. A capitalist business, is to make money. The role of government is to help people.
Right.
They're two different things. All right, everybody. Good night.
Adios, everybody. Thank you, and nighty night.